Welcome to Buckets Live, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Michael Fiddle, aka Fiddle's Picks. I love his handle. That's a Joe Delera listening. That's how you put together an NBA handle. Also joined by Brandon Anderson. You can catch him on Twitter and then the Action Network app at Wheaton Brando. I'm at HP Basketball. This is Buckets Live. We're going to break down Mavericks Clippers reaction as the Clippers get the win over the Dallas Mavericks, somehow overcoming an amazing playoff performer, Luka Doncic. We're going to talk about some of the line movement. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of some of the weird stuff that we saw in these game one games with Michael Fiddle and talk about kind of what we think the market's doing. We will cover the two night games that's going on tonight between the Bucks and the Pacers. Interesting line movement on that game, and a lot of stakes for those of us at Action who jumped in very early on what turned out to be a very popular position. And we'll also talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the New Orleans Pelicans. In the last half of the show, we'll get into best bets for Monday, 3 games in the association as the Lakers try and find whatever, I guess they have more adjustments left in the bag, Darvin Ham says, as well as whether the Knicks can get back, can take control of the series completely, or if the Sixers can even it up. And we will talk about Cavs Magic, because Brandon told me before the series started, I don't want to talk about Cavs Magic at all. And then we get to the first show that he's on in the playoffs, and I'm making him talk Cavs Magic. So we'll get to all that and more today. I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Bonus code ACTION will give new users in North Carolina $150 in bonus bets for betting just $5. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, if you are in the chat and you're hanging out with us, and we have a lively group hanging out with us in chat, let's get those takes. Also, make sure to put those bets in for either tonight's games or tomorrow's games. We'll hit those. I will circle back through the chat and we'll talk about your bets live here on Buckets. If you're listening to us on the podcast form, thanks for joining us. Make sure to give us 5-star reviews. Also, make sure to go to youtube.com/the Action Network. All right, let's get started. So the Dallas Mavericks walked into a game where it was just everybody believed in them. Everybody believed in them. Oh, no, Kawhi. The market moved. It flipped over from Clippers -2.5 all the way. It closed when Kawhi was out at Mavericks -3.5. And it really seemed like all of the momentum in the entire world, like the talk this weekend, like I've been on this talking about like how trendy it is, like how the Mavericks were the trendiest trendster team in the entire world. So what did I do? Yeah, I took the Dallas Mavericks because I'm a moron that doesn't listen to anything that I research. I spend 2 months being like, March basketball's fake, don't listen to it. And the Mavericks can absolutely win this series. It was a weird game on a number of fronts, and there's a lot of ways that they can win this series. Brandon, I will start with you. We were texting, and you mentioned shot variance is kind of like the key factor in this one. I am curious to know if you kind of hold to that. I saw a lot of tactical problems. There'll be questions about whether that first half, the fourth quarter comeback was fake, or like if the Mavericks figured out some stuff and will carry that over into game 2. What was your big takeaway from Mavericks Clippers game 1?
Yeah, this is kind of a boring answer, but I didn't have a huge takeaway from this game. Like I always have a takeaway, right? But I just feel like it was shot variance. And to me, I thought second half was just a lot of kind of going through the motions. Like I don't make a lot of it. And now I'm open to that being wrong. And frankly, I'm not a good tactician. Like I will listen to what you have to say. I'll listen to the other podcasts I listen to and probably learn something about what they found in the second half. To me, Dan Gafford, quick foul trouble. That was going to be a big story. Zubac got him 2 quick fouls. I didn't know if Lively was playing. I don't know if we knew that for sure. So glad that he's back out there. Dallas definitely needed him in that spot. I think one thing I noted here, James Harden had 20 in the first half, 4 out of 6 3-pointers. Harden, at least, I know last year, I can't remember if we went back further than that, when he would have a big long rest or play game 1 in a series, he'd have a huge scoring game and then immediately disappear again the rest of the series. And we've seen him not score for like the last several weeks now coming into this game. So I will be curious to look and see how much, especially if Kawhi's out again, which we got, I believe, just 2 days. Is it Yeah, 2 days off. No, 1 day off here. 1 day off. We played Tuesday. So I'm going to assume if you couldn't play after all of April, that Kawhi maybe sits one more than his 2 days after that. If Kawhi is out, they're probably going to boost James Harden's points lineup. So I probably would look to see about fading James Harden, not off of a big week of rest now at this point, his points line. But yeah, halftime, 9 of 41 shooting for Dallas, 22%, 2 of 18 threes, 11% on those. They missed their last 12 shots into the half. To me, that's just game over at that point. And then I have a hard time making too much of what happens after that. I did note to you guys in the Slack, Jason Kidd, I sadly didn't find this until the middle of the game. I was digging into our bet labs. Jason Kidd, game one all time now is 2-6 ATS. I haven't been on live before. Can we see, can people comment in the YouTube while we're on this? Can we do a trivia to people commenting in the YouTube?
We can.
All right, I got a trivia, and I'll let you guys answer this too. But if you're commenting, Jason Kidd, 2-6 ATS in game one. He's the worst active coach in game ones. I want to know in our Bet Labs system, so back to 2003, who do you think are the two worst coaches ATS historically in game one? Not just round one, game one of any playoff series. Who are the worst two coaches in game one? And I did not limit it to this, but each of these guys has at least 10 game ones. So I stalled you long enough. Now you guys here on the Buckets Live, what do you think? Who are the worst game one coaches?
Well, Matt, you want first guess?
Let's give the chat a couple of minutes to catch up.
Okay, yeah, let's circle back to it. So that's my takeaway.
All right, let's go to Fiddle here. So Fiddle, I thought this line movement was interesting just from the perspective of the market got ahead of this anticipation, and I wrote the game guide for this, and I said basically, look, if you want to follow the market thinks that Kawhi's out, and if that's going to determine your bet, you want to bet it now because the market clearly is like stating its opinion. Kawhi's going to be out. Like that's the opinion is that Kawhi's going to miss this game, and then that's why when it only moves 1.5 points after he comes back is like we always talk about this about that being the halfway mark. Now it is interesting that like if you look at the total movement of this game, right, 5.5 points total, that's not all Kawhi. It's very clear that like there was a healthy sentiment of like, well, I don't think Kawhi's going to play, but also I like the Mavericks here. This line opens for game two. Guess what? We're right back to Mavericks -2.5 on the road versus the Clippers. I'm not surprised by them doing that because if this is where they get to with the power rating, like this essentially shows you like, that's what I think is fascinating here is it doesn't show you the pure market movement, right? Of okay, they were 3.5 at close, it's 2.5 now, because there is some, well, the Clippers did win this game, that's baked into a little bit of the power rating result that they're going to get to. But I am interested in kind of your reaction to that game two line as far as -2.5 and which way we kind of expect this to go with Kawhi Leonard probably still a big question mark for this game in 48 hours.
So, Matt, I call what you're talking about news versus noise. In games, you could have both. You could have one or the other. But as we are evaluating why these lines are moving and when they're moving at certain points, you say, is it news that Kawhi Leonard just went to doubtful, or is it noise that there's sharp action and that we should listen that the market is speaking? Is the line movement relative to a Shams tweet or a big handle and some sharp action that's changing? For game two, I heard Richard Jefferson on the broadcast say that the Clippers spoke about wanting to get Kawhi Leonard more rest. And if they won game one, then that would give him an extra few days to sit out game two. I actually don't think that's a bettable injury report at all. I would keep on waiting. We had Kawhi at shoot around. We know he's been doing non-contact stuff, but I'm just going to throw out there, why do we want any of these players to do contact practice right now? So they're not really going to be doing much of that anyways. So the whole non-contact report doesn't really scare me. I want to wait for more shoot arounds, more reports over the next 2 days. The line says news, Kawhi Leonard is probably going to be out. We are going to see which way the noise goes in the next few hours. I would imagine there's some Clippers steam, but also back to Brandon's point, you guys made excellent points, kind of wrapped up what I wanted to say. James Harden in game one is phenomenal with rest. Last year, everyone talks about that game against the Celtics where when Embiid was out and he dropped like a 40 bomb and took game one in Boston. That was coming off of a sweep against the Nets. And when the Celtics went 6 against the Hawks. So he had, 4 or 5 days rest before game one in that instance too. I like the idea of fading big game James to go not that way in game 2. I think this is a pretty flat market. What was surprising to me was the total, Matt. Can I get into total stuff or too much?
No, you're good. Sorry. The reason I made that face here on Buckets Live is I was curious about the numbers actually. Like, all right, let's check the numbers and see if James actually is better on rest. And
Yeah.
so I looked it up, and on more than 3 days rest, James Harden after today is now 10-3 straight up, 75%, and 11-2 ATS in the playoffs. That's James Harden, like notably not great playoff player James Harden. Should add this one to the old trend file that I got going on, because good Lord, that's a pretty good number. Let's go. We'll hit totals in just a second. I want to go back to Brandon's thing. Here are our answers from the chat, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm looking. I see them.
All right, we got Doc Rivers.
Let's get your answers from you guys. Who do you think are the 2 worst historical since 2003 worst game 1 ATS coaches? Fiddle, who you got?
I'm going to say it can't be Doc Rivers because he gets his 3-1 leads and then blows them. So he's got to have one of the worst game 5 or game 6 ATS records in the books. I'm going to go D'Antoni and say that playoff, the way the game changed in the playoffs caught up to his regular season run and guns.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
I will say Tom Thibodeau, and I will say Vinny Del Negro.
All right, so Doc Rivers was a common guess in the chat. Doc Rivers is the answer for game 7. You want to fade Doc Rivers in game 7, where he is 4-11 ATS.
Sure.
That's where you want to fade Doc Rivers. Nick Nurse 0-2 ATS in game 7. Game 1, you guys are going to be real mad that you didn't get this. And in the chat, where's the name I'm looking for?
Is it Rick Carlisle?
Drew Stevens pulled this one. Drew Stevens, nice job. Mike Budenholzer is the worst. He is 4-15 ATS in game 1. If you were $100 better and just faded Bud every game, you were over $1,000 to the good. And our man Dwayne Casey, 1-9 ATS in game 1 also. Pretty rough for Casey and Bud. So those are your answers for today.
Nice. We got to start doing this every time Brandon's on. We got to do a trivia question.
That was fun.
All right, Fiddle, tell me about the total.
Yeah, so total at this game opened 226, dropped to 223.5 on the Kawhi news. Of course, Clippers shot the heck out of the ball. Mavericks kind of couldn't shoot at all. So I'd actually like to throw it to Brandon because it gets reposted at 218.5. So I know that the under was sharp, like noise and news relative to Kawhi. There was sharp action on it. Then the Kawhi stuff furthered it even more. I think it even closed to like 221. Reopens at 218.5. My gut is grabbing under again, but I'm scared that the Maverick shooting variance comes up as the Clippers goes down. Brandon, what would be your take on a total that it's 5 points underneath kind of where the market was for game 1?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a good sense on the total in this one. I feel like I don't know if it's even catching the falling knife on the will the shooting variance bounce back here with the Mavs. I don't know. Matt, what do you think on this one? I don't have a good answer here.
Yeah, so I think, kind of the way I would think about it is I'll say this. I'm a little skeptical of like all of like the shooting variance stuff. And one of the reasons I think I'm there is the Clippers figured out something very early, which is like, we're going to play Daniel Gafford off the floor. This is like, if you listen to Buckets and you listen to the series preview, you know that one of my big questions was, is Daniel Gafford Dikembe Mutombo? Or is he like Daniel Gafford, who played for the fucking Washington Wizards for 4 years? And today he was Washington Wizards, Daniel Gafford. And if they play him off and you got Derek Lively in, that's a problem. A thing that might help here, I honestly think, Fiddle, the way that I think to play it, honestly, is a Clippers team total under. And the reason is there's 2 things. One, we had great shot variance, and we'll run the numbers on that before Best Bets episode later in the week on Clippers. You can catch that on when's game 2 of the series?
Tuesday.
You can catch that on Monday after like evening show. That'll be up in the feed. We do them a day in advance, so I'll have that for you on tomorrow's show. But the other thing here, big adjustment. Josh Green closed in that fourth quarter and was a +11, and a lot of it was his defensive work. They tried Derek Jones Jr., who like has been really good for them this year. This may not be a Derek Jones Jr. series. I played over on his rebounds and PJ Washington, and Washington crushed. but Derrick Jones Jr. did not. And you could tell that I think Derrick Jones Jr. is a player. This is a very like nuanced kind of thing here. Derrick Jones Jr. is the type of player on the type of contract where Jason Kidd has the freedom to be like, yeah, I'm going to yank him. It is harder to yank players like PJ Washington. It is harder to yank players like Daniel Gafford, guys that are on larger contracts where the team is like, we need to keep these guys happy. We don't want guys with big contracts unhappy. That causes problems long term. Derrick Jones Jr. is a rotation player, and they are free to go ahead and be like, hey, it's not your series. You'll be back next time. So I would not be surprised if we see more Josh Green. I'll be probably playing Josh Green overs in game 2, whether it's rebounds and assists or some defensive metric. But if he's able to have an impact, especially if Kawhi doesn't play, PG didn't have a great shooting game in this one. Harden regresses a little bit, no longer on that rest. I think Clippers team total under may be a really good looking game too.
Yeah, and if you want to wait on that to see if some Clippers steam comes in and get an extra point or two, like, because it's going to be relative to the spread and the total. I do think 218 is going to close around 218 and a half currently. I bet you it closes around 217 if Kawhi is still out.
I want to shout out football Jesus in the chat, who said that everyone in the world bet the Mavs except the smart guys in Vegas. May not have been in Vegas, but he's absolutely right. Via the Action Network app. So we had all this line movement on the Mavericks, all this steam poured in. Everybody's the hottest team in the league. I'm taking Luka Doncic to beat the Clippers again. They've never beaten the Clippers in the playoffs. 33 sharp moves we tracked in the Action Network app on the Los Angeles Clippers. I bet the Mavericks. Such a moron, Brandon. I'm so dumb. I'm just so dumb. We should clip that and make that definitely a drop in for future episodes. All right, let's move along here. That's a good one. I think it was a really great game for Harden. Really great game for Zubac. That pressure on the internal defense of the Mavericks. This is not the regular season, and you're no longer facing sub 500 teams. I'll be very curious to see what happens. By the way, just to go ahead and this is going to apply to all the games we talk about today. I'm going to go ahead and throw this number out via whowins.com. Teams at home who win game 1 go on to win the series. They are 105-13 for 89% of the time. They win the series in game 2 of these first round series. That's just first round. In game 2 of the first round, they are 94-24 at 80% in game 2. Now, that's not seed centric, so a lot of those are going to be the 1s and 2s that we've talked about. But it is just kind of interesting that winning game 1 is a massive freaking deal. All right, Brandon had this question. I think it's a great one for us. Brandon, what was the game 1 of all the game 1s that we've seen so far? And we got 2 left. We'll talk about in a bit. What was the number 1 game where you were like, I may have to adjust some priors I had going into this series on this?
Yeah, I was choosing my shirt accordingly on buckets, and I gotta come in repping the Timberwolves today. Man, Matt, you and I kind of, especially me, I buried the Timberwolves' chances. I nibbled Suns sweep. I don't like my chances on that ticket anymore at this point. That went very poorly by about the third quarter. To me, Suns Wolves by far was the game 1 that most shipped in my opinion. Matt, you and I talked, I gave you, in our series preview, I gave you 8 possible ways as the Wolves fan in me tried to come up with, how can the Wolves stay in this? Here's 8 things I came up with, and will they try any of them? They did a bunch of the stuff. Like, that's not even a victory lap, just like, Finch was ready. Like, the Wolves were ready, Finch was ready. They did a lot of the stuff, and they threw the first punch, and I didn't know that they had that in them. So, to me, Wolves Suns by far is the one where I'm like, all right, you've got my attention.
So we talked about this on Buckets Live after the series, after the series were set, and I was on with Fiddle, and we were talking about it. And one of the things, and it started there, and the conversation continued when I talked to you, and we did that series. Well, it's interesting. We did a series preview, and I took under 5.5 games, and I actually still feel really good about that bet. Just in one particular direction now, obviously. But one of the things I came to on this, like the more I thought about this week, and I wasn't brave enough to put the Wolves bet in because you never know with coaches. You just don't know. Like, all right, I know Chris Finch from having interviewed him long ago, having talked to him in various scrum situations, having followed his career. I know Finch is a smart guy. And in my opinion, he seems like a guy that's very likely to be flexible and adapt to his personnel. Just the fact that he made the 2 bigs lineup work to me is proof of he's an inventive guy that can manage these type of things. And if we start with that prior, I think there was real money to be made on the Wolves in this series, whether you're on the series spread line or whatever, or in game one, based off of the fact that if you're able to anticipate, like, yes, Chris Finch is the type of guy who's not just going to run into the thresher. There are so many coaches that would have just been like, we're going to do what we do. We're the Timberwolves, and so we're just going to keep it the same way we've played all year. And Finch was like, fuck that. No, we have lost 3 times this team, and we've gotten killed. And the quotes this week, I wrote this on a column that went up on Action on Friday about Chris Finch and Karl-Anthony Towns were both of them like, yeah, we have to be versatile here. Like, we have to get pretty creative. Now, that doesn't mean they went away from 2 bigs. They made 2 bigs work by shifting Jay McDaniel to Devin Booker to shut the water off on Book, and then basically living with Kevin Durant ISOs and focusing on the other 2. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker played a big role. He's going to have a bigger role in this series. I'm going to play his over on threes again. And Finch made all of the tactical adjustments that I think you want to see in this type of series. Suns fans, I was listening to the Suns podcast, and they're like, well, they just have to play better. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, your problem is more that, like, you don't have a small ball unit. Your small ball unit is like, please God, Kevin Durant, don't get killed. And I don't know that KD can do that for a long time, which means that we're going to see more Drew Eubanks. And guess what? That's really bad for them. Or it's like, oh, Yusuf Nurkic, you have to play 46 minutes and not, gas out or pick up 6 fouls in those 46 minutes, which is very hard for Nurk to do. It's fine to say you don't want to overreact to game ones. I totally get that. Even though I just gave the stats on, if you win game 1 and you're at home, you do pretty well. I understand not wanting to overreact to game 1. What I will say is that the more I looked at the series, the more I realized that if the Timberwolves were bold enough to make the decisions that would help them in the series, it could go very badly for Phoenix. And that was what game 1 was. We'll see if Vogel has counters. I think his personnel options are limited, but I think it's a really interesting one. Fiddle, what is the game 1 that you feel like had, like, you're just like, I got to reevaluate some stuff?
Yeah, I actually had pretty much no opinion on Wolves Suns, so now I could form an opinion from nothing. I don't have to change my priors. I'd say the biggest one I have to change, it might be the Pacers upcoming. It might be I have to get on the Pacers bandwagon, even though I have not jumped on it yet. But I'll say the Knicks for now. I was on the 76ers pregame, felt really bad about that ticket kind of as soon as that second quarter comeback started. My change in perception is that the Knicks role players are better than the 76ers. I had Tobias won't be invisible if Joel Embiid is the boat that lifts all tides and rises all the ships. I had the feeling that Oubre and Batum would keep their versatility and switchability and floor spacing out there for him. Catch 22, Josh Hart was better than both of them. Deuce McBride was better than any of the Buddy Hield you're going to get from Philadelphia. Jalen Brunson still having a bad game, and for kind of the Knicks to win that and convincingly, I think the Knicks are going to play better, and that's going to make me start to back the Knicks moving forward. So I am likely going to be switching so hard that I go from Philadelphia, not to no bet in game 2, but from Philadelphia to backing New York pretty quickly.
Brandon, next year that we do the playoffs and the Knicks are in it, can you just be like, Matt, remember the last 2 years of the Knicks? And that doesn't mean I have to bet them blindly. Just remind me that, like, I have zero feel for this team. Like, just none. And I liked this Knicks team. Like, I liked this Knicks team. And even then, like, because I was very, like, you and I passed around basically a whole tank of Sixers finals gas, and we're just, like, taking big huffs off of it for the sweet, sweet big payout that we could get on it. And it's not that that's dead. I have a lot of skepticism about game 1, but this is the problem, Brandon. We'll talk about it when we do best bets. We'll talk about it then, but I will set the stage for it to give you, like, how I'm thinking on this. Is that I look at game 1 and my every instinct in me is like, you should double down. Like, congrats to Deuce McBride. Let's see him do it again. And yet I feel like that's the trap that I've fallen into a couple of times in the playoffs on this podcast, this podcast right here, that I've been like, No. But then there's the other thing of like adjusting too quickly. We'll talk about this in the in when we get to best bets, but I do think it's a really interesting one. The game one that I think that probably influenced me the most. I kind of want to see the other two, to be quite honest with you. In terms of those types of things. Honestly, probably Lakers Nuggets. And the reason is I didn't get to be on the 2-7s because I had some stuff going on, but I have a small, very, very tiny ticket on the Lakers to win the series. And not dead, but might need to take it in for some trauma one care because it's not looking great. First half I felt so smart, Brandon. I felt so smart. I was like, look how smart I am. Look at me. I knew the Nuggets weren't that good and they could still win the series, but like there was value here. I knew there was value. And then just like the Nuggets just decided, hey, what if we're just like better than you? Like, what if we are an NBA championship team and you need good minutes from D'Angelo Russell? What if that's this game? And then it was over so quickly. So Lakers Nuggets. It's not that I expected the Lakers to win. If you were like pick Lakers Nuggets, I would have been like Nuggets in 6. I officially took Nuggets in 7 to be bold, right? Nuggets in 6 is like a reasonable answer to me. But game one would very much put the fear of God in me where I'm just like, man, maybe they just I look at things like the number of times the Lakers have had a double-digit lead versus the Nuggets in these last 9 games and been like, surely these things will eventually even out given the rate of winning percentage if you're up by double digits. And no, like the Lakers just may not be able to beat this team like ever, Brandon.
Yeah, I gotta say, well, I mean, you heard the 2-7 series preview that Jim Turvey and I did. To me, my priors maybe moved the least on that series, but that's just because our priors were so far off. I just felt like the Lakers were, I mean, I can't say drawing dead. You have LeBron in a series, you're not drawing dead. They're still not drawing dead. Like you still have LeBron, still things can happen, but just based on it wasn't just the 8 games, now 9 game, most competitive 9 game losing streak in NBA history, of course. It wasn't just that, in that it's like the same movie every single time. I call it the Fast and the Furious franchise. I guess just we know the ending. We've watched the movie, but we just keep making more movies. Here we are again, Nuggets Lakers. I wonder what will happen. It's the 4th quarter. Jokic is out, but it's still tied. Here he comes again. What will happen? What will happen is Jokic will put Davis in the bucket if he's even on the court still, and then they will win. That's what happens. We see the movie. To me, that's just what the series is. The thing that made me like, I wanted actually, Matt, to kind of be similar to you. I wanted, like, I love to play devil's advocate, and I wanted to say, if the Lakers are, always in the game, sure enough, they probably can close out a couple games. They can steal a couple, and quite frankly, I didn't bet Nuggets sweep, which is what I kind of wish I had a ticket on now. I bet Nuggets -1.5 on the series, which to me feels not aggressive enough now. I feel like perhaps there was opportunity lost there. To me, the reason why I couldn't get there on maybe the Lakers do have a shot is Jim and I talked about just the little edges. There were the little things that Denver was doing too. And that was, to me, what stood out in game one. They didn't turn it over. Well, they have like 4 turnovers the entire game. I think 1 by the starters. They crush on the offensive glass, which is not normally a thing Denver does a lot of. They had, I think, 15 offensive rebounds in that game. Denver shot 23 more field goal attempts than the Lakers. 23 more. Now, granted, part of that's because the Lakers lived at the free throw line and then you're not getting field goal attempts. That's a little part of it. You don't get to give the champions 23 extra shots and think you're going to beat them in a game. Like, you just don't. And if you're getting all the possessions, if you're winning the turnover battle and the offensive rebounding battle and all the math stuff, and oh, by the way, every possession you have is God because Nikola Jokic is your possession, that math ain't going to math for you. And that's the problem with the Lakers here is the Nuggets took a ton of threes in this game. That's another math problem. They're like, all the maths are going against the Lakers, and they're the worst team, and there's a D'Lo problem that we knew was happening coming in. I don't feel like we're going to have to watch too many more films in this franchise.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but it's getting scary hours for sure. We will touch on this series as quickly as possible because Celtics Heat is just sad. Just sad, 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 sad. But Fiddle, you had some interesting stuff on the line movement on this game I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, I actually took more away from what happened in the 10 minutes before the game than the 48 minutes of game action.
Love it.
I felt not even playoff Jimmy or scary Terry having his revenge back in Boston could have even done it for Miami, even if they were playing. I'd be back in the Celtics here. But Matt, what I noticed was there was under movement all week, opened at 210, started dipping down, got down to 208, 208 and a half. And then all of the sudden, 2 points of movement at once. So normally we see these lines tick, 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 half a point, half a point, half a point. I call it tick, half a point. We saw a full 2-point jump from 208 and a half universally across the board, closes at 210 and a half before the game, ends up being a spot where the over had the plus CLV despite under movement all week. Then we come out, we actually see the game, and what, the Miami Heat have like 57 points as we get to the fourth quarter. And I'm sure everyone at home is saying, oh, I'm going to slam the under when game 2 lines come out. Game 2 lines come out, Matt, and it comes out at 206 and a half. So now I would imagine everyone says, wow, there was some, should have been 208 the whole time. Miami really can't score. Boston even hit a bunch of threes in this game. This is a clear as day under, except the line that opens at 206 and a half immediately starts ticking back up. So it's really just a buyer beware kind of thing that I want to throw out there. My biggest takeaway for game 2 is stay away from the total. This is a bit scary. I am not buying that the Heat can't make a bucket. I'm not buying that the Celtics are going to regress. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a game that goes north of 220 or 225 all of the sudden. There are some weird signals in the market that says these actually might be over spots. So I think there's going to be an under sentiment that starts to brew in the next few days because of the struggles of the Heat offense and their ability to just dump into a zone defense and you know, kind of force the Celtics out of the paint. Celtics like to be out of the paint, and Miami's going to start to hit better shots. So be wary of the totals because of the way it's been moving in the market. You don't want to mess with the bouncing market.
All right, so I got a kind of an interesting trend on this one. So I looked at teams that were top 2 seeds, won game 1 and covered. Okay, in game 2, the total in game 2 is 27 and 18 for 60% to the over. Okay, if you're like, what is the like? Give me some logic there. Fair. Here would be the answer. It seems like the team 1 carries over the momentum from game 1, and they continue to produce offense at a high level because they produce their team total over 50% of the time, while simultaneously, or independently rather, the other team makes adjustments and figures out their offense and gets a little bit more comfortable, and they are able to pick it up as well. And they are actually 28 and 20 to the team total over. That's the opponent team total over in game 2. So you've got this. Now, they don't cover. They cover 47% of the time. There's a slight just above profitability edge for taking the game 1 winner who covered in top 2 seeds in game 1 and game 2 at 37 and 8 straight up, 24-21 ATS at 53%. So that covers our profitability. But the over is 27 and 18, and it does appear that there is some value in taking the opponent team total over. The logic here is pretty simple, which is like, hey, you're giving Eric Spoelstra a game 1 in which the Celtics absolutely just destroyed them. They'll be, 1, motivated, and 2, Spoelstra will figure out some sort of way in order to generate points. That may not be the case here. We'll talk about that when we get to best bets on that game later this week, but that's going to be the question, right? Is like, much like I have questions with Frank Vogel, it's not that I don't think Frank Vogel can come up with adjustments. Not that I don't think Eric Spoelstra can come up with adjustments. He has to have the personnel to do so. And last year it didn't matter because it was just like Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin are going to become Steph Curry and Kobe Bryant. But we'll see if the Heat have that kind of magic in them this year. Let's hit very quickly on tonight's games, and then we'll do some best bets for tomorrow. Fiddle, what are your best bets on Thunder, Pelicans, and Pacers, Bucks?
I'll go Thunder -8. Do you want to
All
give
right.
the cap now or wait it out?
Wait it out. Brandon, what do you like for tonight?
I'm going to take the Pacers -1 or whatever best number you get for them. And I'm going to just put a little bit, not a full unit, probably half unit on Pelicans money line. I see a +300. We need the big upset for the first weekend. We're out of options. It has to be the Pelicans, QED.
I think the Clippers were the big upset. They busted market sentiment and they were technically dogs. All right. I'm on Thunder -8, and the reason I'm on Thunder -8 is I'm actually following Fiddle here based off of something that I know that he's going to talk about. So Fiddle, hit me with your cap for Thunder Pelicans.
Well, let's just keep pushing the credit down the road. I found this system on Action Network's website years ago before I even was a contributor with Action. So it's nice for me to be able to promote their stuff on their airways. You could go to the pro systems on the Action Network website and see a system called NBA First Round Favorites. It is a system, which is a betting system, is when you have a series of criteria or rules, and when those rules are all met for the specific game, it triggers a bet. So in this particular betting system, I am backing a 1 or a 2 seed. Obviously, OKC got the 1 seed in the West this year. They are in the first round of the playoffs, hence the name First Round Favorites. They are the favorite with a spread between -4 and -25. I just like to say -4 or greater because I don't think we'll be seeing a -26 anytime soon.
Well, see, let's see how Celtics
Celtics?
Heat gets, but okay, keep going.
Okay, maybe the Celtics Heat if the Heat lose Bam Adebayo or something. Knock on wood. But yeah. So this playoff system is better than I am at betting. And this is what I do for a full-time job, and it's better than me. So if I can latch on to what it shows, I'll do that. It has a 60% ROI. It has a 60% hit rate, an 18% ROI. Sorry for that. It has a large sample size of data with over 170 wins, about 110 losses, and about 10 ties. So you have a large sample size of data with an 18% ROI and a 60% hit rate. This is really strong metrics. And it's already started 3-0 this season. Knicks covered against the spread. Denver covered against the spread. Celtics cover against the spread. I expect the Thunder to follow suit.
My take is that I like that trend when I heard it on Fiddle's podcast, which you can find on his Twitter account. And I like that very much. And that was enough for me to get on board here. Plus, part of me, I will say, is biased by observation bias, I guess is what it is. I observed a bet stream in which I had to do this season on NBA app of the Pelicans and Thunder, in which I had Jonas Valanciunas overs and watched Willie Green be like, no, we're going to try and run small ball versus the Thunder. That's what they want us to do, is to go big versus Chet Holmgren, who's 180 pounds. No, we're going to play Larry Nance at the 5, and we're going to spread the floor and shoot a bunch of threes. That's how we'll beat the Thunder. When I'm like, they made the entire plane out of what you're trying to do here. What are you doing? What are you doing? I think this is a coaching mismatch. I think this is a talent mismatch. I think that the Thunder are probably better than the market. Like, this number to me, Brandon, without Zion Williamson, like, Zion's worth 3.5, 4 maybe in the market. Like, that to me is like that's where I'm basing this off of, is Thunder -8. Okay. But Thunder -8 without Zion is saying that they basically think that the Thunder are not good enough to cover 2 possessions. And at some point I need to be like, the Thunder have just been really fucking good this year. And I kind of want to back the team that's been really good versus the team that, well, completely wet the bed versus the Lakers and then wound up in the situation that they're in. So I will ask you like to sprinkle a little bit on the Pelicans money line. Why?
So let me first respond to our trend that we're on, because if you check the trend, game 1 of the 7 games in a series is the one that it is least favorable for. It is effectively a 500 trend for game 1. It is a winning trend, better for all the rest of the games. So that's not a negative trend here, but I don't know that it's a standalone trend that I would bet here. Speaking of trends that you should not bet standalone, since the play-in tournament started, the actual one we have right now, we have 3 years of that. Entering this season, the 7 and 8 seeds that advanced and then played a game 1. So the team that played the midweek game that's tired and is supposed to get blown out, which we just saw 3 times. We saw Miami get demolished. Those teams entering the year were both 2 and 4 straight up, the 7 seeds and the 8 seeds, 2 and 4 straight up, as presumably huge game 1 underdogs on the road against the top teams. So I'm playing that spot that I have found, obviously a very small sample size and one that has gotten much worse with the 3 games we've had since then this year, I realize. And when Jim Turby and I did our possible 1 versus 8 series preview, I just think the Pelicans are live in the series. And that's why I'm betting them right off the bat. We know that if you want to bet the underdog in the playoffs, you bet them to win outright, not just on the spread. A key trend for me that I don't know what to do with, the Thunder are the #1 3-point shooting team by shooting percentage. I've been a little concerned about that. How will that hold up in the playoffs? Will guys like Lou Dort still hit those shots in the playoffs? Will the young guys be ready to hit the shots? Is that even a real percentage? Is it enough data? Would it regress anyway? The Pelicans defense allows a ton of 3-point attempts by design. And for the second straight year, they are #1 in 3-point percentage defense. Now that is supposed to be a stat that I completely ignore as randomness. But when you do it 2 years in a row, I don't know what voodoo magic Willie Green's defense is doing, but I have to believe something is happening there. And maybe the something is allowing lots of threes to your worst players. So, now I got Lou Dort and Josh Giddey jacking 5 and 10 threes a game and in the playoff setting. And now can they hang in the rotation? We're finding that out very quickly in a series here. Pelicans 28 and 14 on the road this season, second best in the NBA to only Boston. That's straight up record. They're a great first half team. They're just a weird team. Like they literally, of the 30 teams, they're the team I least have a handle on. They have lots of weird 4 factors-y stuff. And then the last thing I like about them, Zion to me, clearly their best player, by far their best player. We know I don't love Brandon Ingram. I don't love CJ McCollum. I think the team makes a lot more sense without Zion in the lineup. I think it's worse, but it's a team where the guys know what they're supposed to be doing. Like Brandon Ingram's like, oh, I'm the dude now? Cool. I know how to do that. I don't know how to stand over here while Zion's the dude. I'm bad at that. We're worse when I do that. I know how to be the guy. I'll be the guy. I can do that. JV gets to play a little bit more, probably. Like, just all the rules make more sense. I think it's a long series. I think that they can steal game 1. So that's why I'm on Pelicans game 1 money line.
By the way, since 2019, so we could do this a little bit more recently. So we're having like a trend off here. We're just gonna keep throwing trends at each other. Since 2019, game 1, top 2 seeds favored by 4.5 or more, 57% against the spread, which is still really good. All right. Real quickly, Phil's got something. What you got?
I just want to reemphasize what Brandon said, because he said it and it's really important and he said it quickly. When we get to the NBA playoffs, if you're going to play the dog, you want to also play the money line as an escalator. And if you want to play the favorite, you want to play the spread. We have that kind of trend data going back for a few years. That's just insane. So I actually really like that if you are going to be on the other side of this, you're just playing it from the money line perspective. And you're playing into, I mean, we saw that with the Clippers just now covering outright and winning as the dog. You're playing into the idea that there's the lack of experience on OKC side. Not that New Orleans has tons of experience, but we just saw the Clippers experience show over the Lively and the Gafford and the PJ Washington. Some of the guys that haven't had that playoff experience were pretty bad in that Mavericks Clippers game. So if you are going to do it, I think money line's definitely the way to go.
Really, really quickly, because this game is about to tip off.
Yeah.
Brandon, you already gave out the cap on.
Yeah,
Pacers.
that's the cap. The cap is,
okay.
You like the Pacers. If you like them, you should like them early. You want the shorter series. You like them without Giannis. You like them from the season series. There's nothing unique about it, except that if you agree with the cap we gave on the season or on the series bet, and we're all in on Pacers, I'm on Pacers escalator down to sweep. If you're in on that, you get a coin flip basically here. You better be playing it. That's it. That's the cap.
Can I ask Brandon a question on that?
Yes.
Brandon, I know you said you've Pacers sweep. You said you might look into some Nuggets alt spreads. With the Pacers at -1, and when we get to the NBA playoffs, more games than in the regular season end in a 10+ point differential, right? We get more blowouts, even though the games get more competitive. Uh, 5 out of the 6 games that have wrapped up so far have been 10+ games. Are you even considering alting a Pacers -1 to a 8 or 9.5?
I don't hate that. I had not really considered it, and now I'm sad that I did not because I've altered so many Pacers things. I do have that for a game we're going to get to for Monday night, so I like that you brought that idea up. But you're right. We get a lot of blowouts. You get the team that puts the game away. So if you like Pacers as much as I do, if you are on them in this game and want to bet aggressively for it, I think that's a good play.
I'm on Pacers. I bet series. Brandon and I would love this one. And I don't know why. I'm really scared of Bobby Portis. I know that sounds crazy. I understand it. I understand all the I'm aware. I just have a really bad feeling regarding about Bobby Portis ruining all of the Pacers bets for all of us after what was not a great year, I think, for Bobby, despite him. By the way, congrats to Bobby for finishing top 3 for 6th man of the year. We're gonna do best bets for the Monday slate in the association. We'll get to that right now on Buckets Live. Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We're on Buckets Live here. That went live on this Sunday afternoon before the last 2 games of the night. So when you're listening to this on Monday, be aware that we do not know what happened in the Thunder game, and we do not know what happened in the Pacers game. But we're going to talk about the games for Tuesday, actually, in the association. We're going to do the best bets for... Nope. Best bets for Monday is what we're doing. Best bets for the Monday slate. Just kidding. Got my days mixed up. In the association, we'll break down those bets. We'll get you best bets. And to do that, I got Michael Fiddle. He's on Twitter and in the Action Network app at Fiddle's Picks, my favorite current Action Network contributor handle. I like that one better than NBA Watts right now. Also joining us is Wheaton Brando, who refuses to change his handle. Brandon Anderson, NBA futures analyst. We're going to break down all the games from the Monday slate. Brandon told me before we were doing playoff conversations and laying out our schedules and all this stuff. And he was like, hey, so and I told him, I was like, hey, you don't have to do every series. It's okay. I won't have you on all the time. And he was like, okay, phew, good. I was like, he's like, just know, I don't really have a lot of interest in the East. And especially I don't want to deal with Cavs Magic. And I was like, sure, no problem. So the first show that I have him on, it is a Cavs Magic game night. So we're going to get picked, but he's a trooper. So he's got a best bet for that game because he does the work. He's always there for us. We'll get you best bets on those games and more. I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Bonus code ACTION will give new users in North Carolina $150 in bonus bets for betting just $5. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we'll go around the horn. We'll give our best bets for the Monday slate in the association. We have 3 games in the NBA playoffs on Monday. I will be at one of them. Excited to see this never-ending sequel series of Nuggets versus Lakers games. The Orlando Magic take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs are -5.5 in the market. No move from open. The Philadelphia 76ers are in New York taking on the Knicks, who have 1-0 lead. This is Knicks -5.5 up from -5 at open. And the Denver Nuggets are -7.5 up from 6.5 at open. Don't know why that number moved down at open of the next game. We got total sides, everything and more, but let's go around the horn. Brandon, what are your best bets for Monday in the NBA playoffs?
In my favorite series ever, give me Paolo Banchero over the 3.5 turnovers. That one hit in game 1. So just going right back to the well. Not a lot of thought into that one. We'll get to that. And in the other Eastern series, I wrote an article about this at the behest of Matt Moore. He wanted 500 words. I gave him 500 words on the dot. Knicks game 2, Knicks series double, -20. I think the Knicks win the game. I think the series is over. I will explain why. Speaking of series that are over, give me the Nuggets, -7. Give me some Nuggets alternates. We'll get into that later.
All right. Michael Fiddle, what are your best bets for Monday?
Yeah, I genuinely feel emphatic about this series. Give me Cavaliers -5.5. I'd love to talk to you about it. Under 209.5 for Knicks 76ers.
I'm doing Cavs -5.5. I'm on Knicks -5.5. I'll be tailing Brandon on Knicks game 2 series double at -120. And I'm probably going to be back in on the under in Nuggets Lakers as well. All right, let's get this one out of the way. Brandon, Paolo Banchero 3.5 turn. I like that your best bet for Cavs Magic is you're just basically taking a representation of how ugly the series is. Paolo Banchero over 3.5 turnovers. Give me the cap.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That is decidedly why I have chosen this. We talked in the preview about that Orlando would struggle to score. Woo! Orlando has struggled to score. Only one game so far, but in game 1, non-Wagner's and Paolo Bancheros for the Magic went 8 of 46, 17% from the field outside of the bros Wagner's and Paolo. Paolo actually put up some points, had some kind of efficient looking numbers, unless you happen to look in the turnovers column. My man nearly had a playoff debut double-double with turnovers. He had 9 turnovers in game 1. We played the over 3.5. We're back on the 3.5. You're going to have to drink some juice on it now. This time you might do a 4.5 if you prefer a better line. I think I'd play the 3.5 still. 24 turnovers in 5 games against the Cavs this season. That's 4.8 a game. They just don't have a lot of offense. They don't have a lot of dudes. And Franz Wagner actually had a pretty good looking game by the end of the game, but they are not really defending him. Like, they're not afraid of Franz. They're like, you know what? Let's just put 5 dudes on Paolo, because go ahead, everybody else. You're not going to beat us with the rest of them. So he's getting a lot of defensive attention, getting a lot of hand swiping in there. And I just don't see any reason that would necessarily change. Feels like one of those lines that's probably going to keep ballooning. So I'd rather just grab it while we can now. Magic scored some free throws. They scored some pick sixes off turnovers. That was really the only offense they had. Like the half court offense was pretty ghastly. So to me, this series in my notes, so this is the 4-5 series. To me, this is like when March Madness starts and it's the first game of the tournament and you're like, yes, March Madness is here. Who's on? And it's the 8 versus 9. And you're like, okay, yeah, Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. Yeah, this is a good game. I don't really know who will win. This will be close. This will be fun. And you're like, oh, yeah, but also who cares? Because UConn is in the next round. That's this series. It doesn't matter. We're going to watch it. We're going to bet it and win some money anyways. And then they're going to get obliterated by the rested Celtics in the next round. That's what we're watching here.
Yeah, it does suck that I like Cavaliers. Hey, this Cavaliers team that like I had hoped for last year. This is what they're supposed to look like. And I'm just like, yeah, it's because they're placing the Magic and they're going to get completely rocked by the Cavs in the second round. But I'm with Fiddle on Cavs -5.5 here. Look, this is a continuation of the cap. This is not like a tactical series matchup. This is a talent and overall quality of team matchup. It's not that Orlando's a bad team. They're not. But we talk about floors and ceilings a lot on the show, right? You have to have a floor offensively in the playoffs to be able to handle the level of attention and intensity and focus and game planning you're going to get. And Orlando whiffed on all of that in game 1. And I did not see things like this was not shot variance. In pick and roll situations, Paolo Banchero was 0.78 per possession. That's wretched, but still better than Franz Wagner, who was 0.667. Jalen Suggs in pick and roll shots or turnover or foul situations scored 0 points, 0 on 7 possessions. So on the one hand, Fiddle, I'm like, well, it can't get any worse for the Magic offense. It could get a little better and they could still get rolled here. I don't understand why this number is under 2 possessions.
Yeah, so let's start with the market read of this, Matt. Game 1, there was a lot of pre-series Magic sentiment. I feel like it was a pretty public take to say the Magic are tough, Cavaliers are weak. Let's bring in the trauma from the playoff series with the Knicks. Look how tough the Magic have played this season. The Magic are going to be this year's Knicks, and they're going to take it to the Cavs, and the Cavs are going to buckle again. Pre-game for game 1, it went from 4.5 to 4 and then back to 4.5 and just stayed there until about an hour before tip, when the limits get raised and when big money can start to come in, and then boom, a universal close at 5.5 and then an outright cover where you win by 14. So when the line reopens at 5.5, and I was absolutely sure that the reason why it went from 4.5 to 5.5 was because late sharp action came in on the Cavaliers before tip. I said, okay, it's not going to go against me. This is not going to start going the other way where I'm going to get caught with a bad ticket as it goes back to 5 or 4.5. So we had a very strong sense and a high degree of probability, a high degree of certainty that we had one-sided movement possible. So I was either going to be in a flat market, which it kind of might appear to be, or I was going to gain CLV and be in a good spot. Regardless of that, I completely agree with you, Matt. This talent advantage is extreme. The Cavaliers have the pieces that make up for playoff success. They have guys who can create shots for themselves, and they have tons of rim protection. So you add in those, and you kind of try and forget the trauma again of last year, and it was a no-brainer to back the Cavs. I'm backing on them -5.5 with no fears for this one.
Yeah, it's playoffs. I will say there's been this big sentiment of like, don't overreact to game one. I do kind of think that might be like a round 2, round 3 finals thing. Like, don't overreact to game one when we have weeded out the teams that don't necessarily need to be here. And look, Orlando made the playoffs. That's a big deal. And they did so with like literally they never started a point guard. And they have a lot of room to add stuff. Like, I like Orlando. They're a lot of fun to watch. I will say this is kind of this game one was a very good reminder of like, hey, by the way, the Cavs, when fully healthy, are a top 5 defense. Like, the Magic are a very good defense too, and maybe even a better one, but the Cavs are like a top 5 defense with a pretty good offense and a superstar in Donovan Mitchell, who's better than any of the offensive players that the Magic have. So yeah, I like Cavs -5.5 here as well. All right, Brandon, I want to talk Knicks Sixers. Look, all of the Knicks starters were in the negative. All of the Knicks bench was in the positive. That to me, I have a real problem with trying to take a huge takeaway on this. Like, look at this. OG Anunoby was -5. Josh Hart was -5. Isaiah Hartenstein was -13. Jalen Brunson was -3, only scored 22 points on 26 shots. Dante DiVincenzo was a -23, but they got killed because Miles McBride was 7 of 12 from the field, hit 5 of 7 from 3, scored 21 points, and was a +37. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand. Like, I know teams can lose in the non-starter minutes. Like, that's absolutely a thing that can happen. I don't think the benches are irrelevant. But, like, this was the Knicks at home. With Embiid coming off of that play-in tournament game. When everyone in our group, all of our 17,000 Knicks fans we employ at Action, being like, oh, did you see Embiid in that Tuesday game? Didn't look good. Well, he looked pretty good in the first half. He got hurt and he still was fine. Fine. Like, so I'm not going to do it because I'm chicken shit. I will tell you, like, I'm laying it with the Knicks based off of the logic that you've said. Part of me, if I talk about the basketball side, I kind of expect the Sixers to win. I'm just too much of a coward. So I've got this Knicks bet. I don't know what to do with this, but you've got the logic. Can you give me the digest on the article that you wrote about why you're playing Knicks game 2 in the series?
So I think, to me, I really agree with almost all of what you've said. The big red flag difference to me that I don't agree with, I don't think Joel Embiid was fine in the second half. I think Joel Embiid played in the second half. I think Joel Embiid put up some numbers in the second half. I don't think he was the same dude. And I do not expect him to be really much better on one day of rest, going right again on Monday night. When in the third quarter of that game, so Joel Embiid does, I believe it's on the broadcast, his first dunk since returning from injury. I don't know if that's true, if it was the first dunk in the game. First dunk since injury would have given me real pause before doing my Sixers futures position. But obviously, you land from a dunk, you're going to put a little extra oomph onto that leg. He did. He immediately goes down in a heap. I'll speak for myself, but certainly seemed like internet known for overreacting to things. I thought he was done for the game. I thought he was done for the series. I thought he just was done. I thought he was done and we weren't going to see him again. And he came back out. Now, granted, we saw a similar thing against Orlando just in the last week, but he came back out. But to me, all the plus minus stuff that you talked about, Matt, in the way the starters looked good, so much of that came in the first half when they started really good. Embiid scored the first 9 points. And I know they had the big run in the third quarter. And to me, I tweeted out during the run in the third quarter, okay, all right, Embiid is playing. The Sixers have closed this. I thought before the series even started, based on the way that the rest lined up, 2 days of rest, game 1, 1 day of rest, game 2, 2 days of rest, game 3, 2 days of rest, game 4. The best spot on the schedule for the Knicks was always going to be game 2. They were always going to have the least rested Joel Embiid and least rested Sixers who played midweek, especially Joel Embiid, in game 2. When the Sixers made a run and made the push, I tweeted out at the time, okay, this is it. You got to win this now, Philly, because I think Philly only ever had a push in game 1 or game 2. They could get one of them. They could get one really good Joel Embiid game. Based on what we've seen, there's no reason to think we were going to get 2 top Joel Embiid games, and now he got hurt in a game. He's questionable. We don't even know if he'll play in this game. So, to me, I don't really disagree, Matt, with your idea that, like, hey, look, well, there's this number and that number, and Josh Hart hit 4 threes. The bench was 8 of 13 on threes. There's all sorts of stuff that shouldn't happen again. I totally agree with all of that. Game-to-game basis, I think the healthy Sixers, I would probably be backing again here. I don't think they're healthy. I specifically don't think they're healthy in game 2. So here's the cap for the game 2 series bet. I like the Knicks in game 2. It's the spot I liked before the series, and I like it even more because we just saw Joel Embiid get hurt and play 37 minutes. A double whammy that makes me like the Knicks spot even more. Because look, I'm going to make the case that if Embiid is bad or not playing, the Knicks win. Like the Knicks already were 55-33 in rebounds. They demolished them in the season series because Embiid was out. So less Embiid, they win game 2. If the Knicks go up 2-0, here are my options for the Sixers to win the series. There's 5 games left. Got to win 4. I don't think they can win game 7 on the road in MSG. Now there's 4 games left. Now I got to win 4 games in a row. I don't think the Sixers can beat this tough Knicks team 4 games in a row and have a healthy Joel Embiid and do the thing 4 games in a row. And now I'm out of options. So if I think the Knicks win game 2 because of the rest, and I don't think that Sixers can win game 7 or win 4 in a row, there you go. Game 2 series minus 120. I think that was more than 500 words, but that's why I like that bet for the Knicks in game 2, even though I think your cap about the Sixers not being as bad as they looked is actually accurate. It's a play on what actually happened, not on the underlying stuff, which is usually the opposite of what I do.
Teams that go up 2-0 with home court advantage, 103 and 89 and 5 in the first round, 95%. You go up 2-0, you win 95%. Teams have won. I have to be very careful with that. If I say you go on to win 95% of the time, that's not accurate. Teams have gone on to win 95% of the time. To your point, Joel Embiid was 2 of 11 in the second half. Mitch Robinson did an awesome job on him, as somebody in the chat mentioned. Riley mentioned that here on Buckets Live. But he was a plus 10. Who knows? Who knows? But I will go ahead and I guess I'll bet the Knicks trying to grasp hold of some sort of reins on a series that continues to be the Knicks continue to befuddle me in many ways. Even when I think that they're very good, which I do. All right. And then let's talk Nuggets here. And let's talk -7 in the alts. So is there a math reason why you like the alts other than the Nuggets always win? And if they're always going to win, then you should take the alts because it bends towards that.
On the first part of our Buckets Live, I already kind of went in on Nuggets Lakers, and we haven't heard from Fiddle on this. So Fiddle, why don't you make your case for the Nuggets -7? I know you like this as well, and then I'll add on for why I like the alts on top of it.
Yeah, it's just another system play for me, Brandon. Fits the script. I do think the little reopen at 6.5 and the late steam pre-game 1 on Lakers has me a little bit worried and caused me to actually bet off the game 1 ticket when the Nuggets started to pull away. So I didn't profit off the system in game 1, but I plan to in game 2. Give me the Nuggets -7. You have to play a flawless game of basketball when you play this team. You the same way that you said about Joel Embiid, Brandon, that he's not going to have rest for game 2, the same way that we spoke about James Harden going into game 1 for Clippers and Mavericks. You got to point out that LeBron is going to be on a shorter rest, and he likes to come out and fire when he has 4 or 5 days rest. So here, with 48 hours in between, I think that's advantage Jokic and co. So between the AD and Jokic battle, we used to give Jokic crap for not being in shape enough to handle the minutes, and it was AD wheezing at the end, and Jokic looking like he was ready to go another few miles, get up some shots after the game, get it a post-game lift. So I like the Nuggets again. It's going to fit FRF no matter what, first round favorite system, no matter where it closes. Considering it opened at 6.5, and because it took some late steam last time, I'm waiting for now in order to grab the number, but I will be on it 7 or 6.5 if we get there.
Couple things. One, he literally did get a lift in. Did literally
actually after the game?
Literally got a lift. He always lifts after games. That's how he got himself in shape. Was he started lifting after games? So
was he wearing the gray suit that he looks like Gru?
No, he decided on a much more subtle black combo. I think it was like a zip up hoodie. So that's what he chose after the game. We were disappointed. We wanted the Gru look. By game, top 2 seeds favored by 4.5 or more. Brandon's right that the lowest outcome is game 1, 55%. Game 2 is at 57.7% ATS. If you are on the road and you are a bigger than 4-point favorite, then this thing smashes. Game 3 is 71%. Game 4 is 64%. Game 5 back down to 63%, and then game 6 is 88% at 7-1 ATS. So if you get to that late stage, which basically indicates like you had some injuries early, you fucked around, and then you got it together, and then you smash them late, is kind of what that comes out with. The AD stuff I think is really salient. I don't know. I'll just say this: the D'Angelo Russell thing. They didn't trade him at the deadline. They decided to keep him. Didn't pick up DeJounte Murray. You know where I'm just telling you, DeJounte Murray would have been really helpful last night for sticking close on to Jamal Murray on these pick and rolls, and for having a better game sense late in these games. And D'Lo only knows like one thing, is like he's got to be himself. Like he's got to be who he is. And guess who he is? He's a chucker. Like that's who he is. And that works when you're hitting shots and it's like boosting up the overall Lakers offense. But he took some shots last night that I would have thrown things if I was an assistant on the Lakers bench. I would have just been like, what are you doing? It was just absolutely reprehensible game sense from him. So at this point, I'm kind of like, all right, maybe. So I lean towards Nuggets here, Brandon, and I get the alts. Let's talk about the alts, though. You did mention this. You can check out youtube.com for Brandon's thoughts on the series, as well as the 2-7 breakdown. Very specifically here, is there a threshold for what the alts where you want to stop at? What's the bell curve of where you want to invest in on this kind of an alt line?
So the answer to that is the same as my case for this game, which is this is another one that Jim Turby and I talked about on the series preview. This game 2 specifically I labeled it a smash spot before the series for Denver, regardless of what happened game 1. Either the Lakers win, and I absolutely wanted Denver here, or the Lakers didn't win. And like we saw happen, the fact that it was, quote, competitive, because all the games are, quote, competitive against the Nuggets, that happened. Anthony Davis played 45 minutes. LeBron played 41. D'Lo played 41. Austin Reeves played 37. I said in our Slack before game 1, and I said on the series preview, much as I love Denver and was totally confident in them in the series, I didn't play game 1. I missed out on game 1 because I thought the Lakers would empty the tank like they did off of 3 days of rest. And they went for it. And guess what? Just like the Sixers, they went for it and they didn't get it, and they're not injured like Embiid. Well, I don't know. Maybe Anthony Davis just sneezed or something. You never know with that guy. But they're out of gas now, and now they have, again, 1 day of rest on the road, and it's worse. It's Denver. It's in altitude. it's a team that already isn't fit and already looked winded. Like Davis is jacking threes. I think he took 3 threes in the second half. That is not the game that you want to be playing against Jokic with Davis. Like that's just a dead giveaway that he is tired. So to me, it is a smash spot for Denver on the spread. And then how far do you go? Well, I had noted before the season or before the playoffs started, the Lakers had 25 losses by double digits this season. 25. That is more than any other postseason team. Notice I'm not saying playoff team. We're counting the Bulls and the Hawks. The Lakers had more double-digit losses than the Bulls and the Hawks this season. And then they had another one in game 1. So my first alt is just -9.5 because I'm lazy, and that's the double-digit thing. That's it. That's a double-digit line. And I'm going to give it back to Fiddle here. You had a stat earlier. Give me the stat you got on the double digits or the teams losing double digits. You got that still?
Yeah, it's right at, I don't have the specific number. I know in the last few years, it's been around or even north of 50% that round 1 and 2 playoff games end in a double-digit lead. So when I talk about, like, when I do my capping, and we could apply it to this 7 is the most common outcome in an NBA game. 5 is the second most common. But when we get to the playoffs, that scale starts to shift. And we start to see, you could play a 7.5 and not worry about missing the hook if it's moved, because the chances that they're going to foul late towards the end of the game, or they're even down 11, they'll do some Monty Williams Pistons stuff when they were going through their losing streak, and they'll still foul down 11 with 30 seconds left. And then it'll get to 13 or so. So we see more than 50% of the games end in a 10-point deficit in rounds 1 and 2 over probably the last 5 years, it'd be safe to say.
And I believe is it 5 of 6 so far that we've seen this weekend as well?
5 of 6 so far, correct.
Yeah, so I think double digits at double digits right now, I think is like a plus 125. So you're not getting a ton of extra juice on what the spread is. Maybe that slides a little bit. Matt, you asked how far. You know me. What's how far? There's no how far. Like this, you. It's an escalator. You keep sliding down your bet. Like if you play an escalator, people ask me this a lot. How do I split my bet up? Which percentage? Usually for an escalator, there's probably 3 parts. There's like the main part, so the spread here, and then maybe let's say you do the spread a -9.5, and then like call it a -14.5, 5 more points. For me, typically, I'm gonna go 60% on the main bet, 30%, 10%. That's a typical escalator for me. I might kind of slide accordingly if there's part of that I like more. So I think for me, I don't know that I'm going to look to bet this as like a 30-point win or something. I don't know. I need to go too far in it, but it's just a great spot in the altitude on short rest for Denver, a team that I liked anyway, a team that I loved in this series against a team that I've been looking to fade, and a team that has lost a lot of games this year by a lot of points. Like either they're close, or I think why wouldn't you, if you're LeBron and Davis and you're down like 15, like, why don't you just be like, all right, like, I don't know, maybe 15 is not even enough. It's got to be more because you got to try to save the series, right? But they've been watching the Fast and Furious too. Like, they know how the movies end also. They probably like stream them on the planes as they're traveling. You get 2 days off before you're back to LA. You're gonna get a friendly whistle. You're gonna get a few more trips to the free throw line on Thursday night. We get like a special call in. Get a guy in the stripes to come out and make sure we can get the series to last a little bit longer again, perhaps get some free throws out here. Why not just like get a little extra rest for a few minutes and let Denver do their thing? And so I don't think I went too conspiracy theory on that one. Just give me the Nuggets. I think they go up 2-0 here. I think they win comfortably. So yeah, however you want to bet it aggressively, I think this is an aggressive spot to back the Nuggets.
I do not think LeBron will do that, by the way. Just having covered him and his awareness of this team, I think LeBron knows, like, if I have to win 4 of 5, I'm not getting out of it. There's no way I'm getting out of this series with 4. I can't win 4 of 5 versus Denver. So he's going to try everything possible to steal home court. I think it's very important for him. I think
I agree. I agree on that. That's why that's why I recorrected when I was like, oh, they're down by 15. No. Like LeBron knows, like, that's why I probably wouldn't necessarily go too crazy on it. They're going to be some push, but the other thing too tell me, Matt, I want your opinion on this. The Nuggets bench is so not great
Yep.
that I almost wonder if it helps their chances of winning by a bunch, because there's really not an option for Denver to just be like, all right, well, we're up by 18 with 5 minutes left. Let's just go ahead and put in DeAndre Jordan and Reggie Jackson to finish this thing out. Like, they kind of have to, like, Denver gets 2 days off after this. Doesn't it help my case that they kind of just have to just stick with the starters and finish it out?
They're going to do that anyway. They're not Malone won't screw around with it unless it's more than 25.
Matt, can I jump in on that?
Hit it.
That's Brandon. That is precisely why we see more 10-point games in the playoffs in the regular season. Because say the Nuggets are up 18 at the start of the fourth, they're bringing in Strother and DeAndre Jordan will be out there. They'll see if they could rest Jokic and Jamal Murray for the entire fourth quarter. That doesn't happen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The losing coach will have to wave the white flag first. We saw this in Timberwolves Suns yesterday.
Yep.
Timberwolves made a shot. They go up like 19 late, 3 minutes and 37 seconds left. Vogel calls a timeout, pulls his starters. Finch lets his guys play for one more possession. Finch calls a timeout, pulls his starters 17 seconds later. So that's just kind of the way. You're not going to get like, even maybe in Miami, maybe in Boston, Miami, we'll get some Peyton Pritchard going against Bam Adebayo units, but we're not going to get that in LA versus Denver. And you probably won't throughout most of these playoff series, which is why 10-point games are a thing.
When a team is favored by 4 or more as a top 2 seed in the first round, they have won by 13 or more. So 12.5 point, 41% of the time. So that's just like a number that I discovered there. That's going to do it for Buckets. Thanks to Michael Fiddle and Brandon Anderson for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow with Buckets for the Tuesday slate. Make sure to check out youtube.com/The Action Network. Check out the full live version of Buckets. My thanks to Tito, who I hope had a great time on Saturday at the wedding that he went to. Tito has been an absolute trooper, and Tito deserves a lot of credit because, like, Buckets Live does not happen without Tito. So shout out to Tito. Also, thanks to David Payne, our audio producer, who helped me out a ton, just a ton. Also, thanks to Brandon Anderson for filling in. I had some family stuff going on last week, and they were amazing. So thanks to those guys for all the help. Make sure to check out Buckets. Make sure to give us those 5-star reviews. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, get buckets.